With the trial less than 2 months away, Joe Gibbs, Rick Hendrick, and other owners are begging the two sides to sit down and settle their differences. How's it going, y'all? My name is Eric. Welcome to a Saturday edition of Out of the Groove, presented by Tableau TV. Pay once, watch forever. Yesterday was a weird day. First, there was a Friday Truck Series race in the middle of the afternoon. I guess every time is Heim time. Corey Heim setting records. But then I go onto social media and see that my guy Ryan Vargas is going monster trucking. Rhino behind the wheel of El Toro Loco. That's pretty sick, not gonna lie. And then I see a video of Kurt Busch in a Monster 97 doing burnouts. This is like one of those weird butterfly effects. You oops, stepped on a rock in 2001, and now in 2025, Kurt Busch is driving a Monster Energy sponsored Roush car. According to Jose Castillo, this is actually a Ganassi winning car that Kurt Busch was gifted, that he slapped his old Roush 97 on the door, put a new engine in it, and yeah, here we go. That's awesome. And then, to wrap up a Freaky Friday right before bedtime, major NASCAR 2311 front row lawsuit news slid across my metaphorical desk. I hope you're settled in because we have a ton of information to go over, a lot of very interesting quotes to read. Last night, NASCAR filed a motion for summary judgment, a push to get Judge Kenneth Bell to rule on this antitrust case before it goes to trial, before it goes in front of a jury in December. NASCAR laid out several key arguments, including, one, they say the statute of limitations for Sherman Act claims is 4 years. The bulk of the conduct plaintiffs' challenges occurred between 2016 and 2019. Claims based on that conduct are long expired. NASCAR's made this case before. They're saying, hey, the original charter agreement that was formed in 2016 had similar release language. Hey, if you sign this, you can't sue us. And both Front Row and 2311 willingly signed on to that deal years ago and didn't raise a fuss. Also, like NASCAR's acquisition of ISC, that merger happened in, I think, 2019, more than 4 years ago. Two, they say, the Fourth Circuit already upheld the release language as standard contractual language that release claims based on all sorts of prior conduct, including antitrust claims. Essentially, they're saying that the "you can't sue us" clause wasn't even illegal to begin with, and the injunction appeals panel seemed to agree with them. 3, NASCAR says plaintiffs fail to distinguish damages for actionable and non-actionable conduct, leaving the jury only to speculate. Basically, they're saying the teams haven't been specific about what they hope to achieve. NASCAR also says plaintiffs concede that they're not trying to start their own competing racing series, thus the allegedly exclusionary provisions in NASCAR's racetrack sanctions and charter agreements could not have caused them any harm. That one is fairly self-explanatory. NASCAR in a statement said, quote, "This lawsuit is not about antitrust. It is merely an attempt to renegotiate an agreement that was signed and is being honored by all other race teams." In one of these filings, NASCAR also seemed to take another shot at Curtis Polk, 2311 executive, Michael Jordan's longtime business partner, who NASCAR has alleged illegally colluded with other teams to try and extract better contract terms from NASCAR. NASCAR said, quote, "Neither greed nor an individual's bruised ego over his inability to deliver on some promises he made to other teams justifies trying to destroy an institution that countless people, including the France family, tracks, team owners, and drivers, have spent decades developing and growing." Now, this is where things get really interesting, because everything I've read up to this point, is Judge Kenneth Bell likely to throw out this entire case before it goes to trial? I think not. I guess I don't know for sure, but up to this point, Judge Bell has been reluctant to rule on anything. Take the most recent injunction situation, for example. Judge Bell didn't want to rule on that. NASCAR went and tweaked some of their rules to make it an easier decision, and then sure, he did. But Judge Bell has said time and time again, he hopes both sides can settle things between themselves. If not, he says he'll be ready for the trial in December. So put that aside. This next part is where things got really interesting. Many of the other NASCAR Cup Series team owners filed declarations mostly defending the charter system, but more importantly, urging both sides to come to some sort of resolution. Penske, Hendrick, Gibbs, RFK, RCR, Legacy, Live Fast, and a few others. I think Trackhouse, Colleague, and maybe Spire are like the only charter teams that didn't submit anything. A lot of these declarations, these letters have been posted on social media. I just want to read a few of the most interesting quotes. Most owners voiced their support of the charter system, some even pushing to make it permanent. Roger Penske took things a step further. He defended the next-gen car, saying, quote, "Since the next gen began racing in 22, Penske's Cup Series race car costs have been reduced due to a smaller number of race cars in the fleet and lesser volume of parts replacements." Penske says the new car has saved his team money. He also supported the charter system, said that he brought a similar charter system to IndyCar this past year. Richard Childress added, quote, "I remain committed to finding a mutually agreeable solution that will provide permanent charters to all charter holders." Yeah, so not only do many of these owners like the charter system, they want it to be made permanent. Now, several owners in these declarations seem to be supporting NASCAR's case. Brad Keselowski said, quote, "Although the teams did not get all they wanted in the 25 charter negotiations, the 2025 charter reflects a compromise RFK was ultimately willing to accept, and I believe it should contribute to growth in team equity values." Then Keselowski pointed out that NASCAR didn't stop him from participating in a rival racing series a couple years ago. Brad said, quote, "I raced in the entire SRX series season, 6 races in 2023, while continuing as a co-owner of and driver for a Cup Series team. NASCAR did not prohibit my participation in the SRX series." So all of these owners, like the charter system, were willing to sign the 2025 agreement, but several owners went a step further and just sounded the alarm. Gordon Smith of Hayek Motorsports said in his statement, quote, "I have significant concerns about the current litigation given the uncertainty it brings and the detrimental effect it may have on the future of the sport." Rick Hendrick, the winningest Cup Series owner in NASCAR history, added, quote, "Undoing what we have collectively negotiated will not only result in immeasurable damage to our sport and our respective businesses, it will, most importantly, hurt the people and families that depend on us for their livelihoods." Joe Gibbs is in a particularly interesting spot, which he pointed out in his declaration. One of the teams suing NASCAR is a JGR partner. Denny Hamlin is a JGR driver. I think Joe Gibbs's statement was the most straightforward. He added at the end, quote, "I have made it clear to both sides in this lawsuit that I do not want to be a witness, and I think it's important for this to be resolved before any real damage is done to the sport." My takeaway after reading all of these declarations is that finally, this is all starting to feel real. Now that some nasty stuff has come out in the hearings, now that the trial, December 1st, is less than 2 months away, a lot of these other Cup Series owners are beginning to sweat. If NASCAR wins this case outright, we kind of know what to expect. I don't think the business is going to change all that much. Unfortunately, 2311 and Front Row may be SOL. I guess they could try to keep racing as non-chartered teams. Maybe there's somehow a way they could be allowed to sign the current charter deal. I don't know. Point is, that's more straightforward. Where things get dicey is if the teams win. If 2311 and Front Row Motorsports win this lawsuit, who the hell knows what's going to happen? Because the two teams have not been super specific about what they actually want. They say NASCAR's a monopoly, right? Well, if the teams win, it's safe to assume NASCAR may be forced to sell off some of the tracks they own, maybe some of the series they own. 2311 has said that they want NASCAR to loosen some of their restrictions on where teams can race, where they can race the next-gen car. They obviously want permanent charters and a larger seat at the decision-making table. But again, that last part, larger seat at the table, kind of vague, very broad. What does that exactly mean? What does that look like in practice? What the teams really want, if they can get their way, is to renegotiate major parts of the current charter agreement. And that's what makes the other teams nervous, because NASCAR has said, and Denny Hamlin pointed this out on social media last night, that they would be open to dissolving the charter system altogether. That's the weird part of all those declarations NASCAR asked the owners to write. They're all supporting, defending the charter system, but 2311 and Front Row have never said they're going to do away with the charter system. They also want to make charters permanent. Did y'all see how hard they fought to keep their charters for this season? All of the injunctions and appeals? They want a charter system too. Like Richard Childress wants, they want a permanent charter system. 2311's attorney Jeffrey Kessler said in a statement, "My clients are not and never have been seeking to eliminate the charter system. We are confident NASCAR's summary judgment motion is not going to succeed. This lawsuit has always been about making NASCAR more competitive and fair for the benefit of drivers, sponsors, teams, and fans who love the sport." See, but there's that broad, we're looking to make it fair and competitive for everyone language again. Like, what does that actually mean? That's why all these other teams are nervous. 2311's willing to fight on behalf of everyone, but everyone is kind of like, hey, we're okay with what we have now. Is the new charter deal perfect? Exactly what all the teams wanted? No. And if you read their declarations, most of them say that. But at least this new charter deal has granted them certainty for at least the next 6 or 7 years. This lawsuit, on the other hand, has brought nothing but uncertainty. That's why all these other team owners are starting to sweat. Those declarations are less about defending the charter system, they're more about protecting the status quo. I'm sure the other owners would love a greater slice of revenue. They would love a larger seat at the table. But if it means completely reforming the industry, destroying the current foundation and building it back up, then to many of those other owners, it just isn't worth the risk. See, we knew throughout all of those charter negotiations in 2023, 2024, we knew that the teams weren't unified. NASCAR knew that and exploited that. 2311 was willing to risk it all, while Gibbs, Penske, Hendrick, and others weren't. We're talking about different owners, different teams, different budgets, different goals, different legacies. This isn't like the NFL where all the owners are kind of unified. They collectively bargain with the league, with the players. In NASCAR, these are all separate independent companies. Hey, you know what? I guess now they're all kind of unified, or at least 8 or 10 of them are. They're unified now because they're afraid. They're afraid of how this lawsuit could impact their business. That's the story here. That's my reaction. Anyway, I again am skeptical that the lawsuit is going to get thrown out at this stage, but could the pressure from all of these other influential owners around the industry force the two sides to sit down and actually talk about a possible settlement? Maybe there's enough pressure there, but one thing I know, my dad grew up in Illinois, was a big Chicago Bulls fan, and he used to say, hey, Michael Jordan never let the pressure get to him. I'm not sure pressure phases the GOAT. We'll see where this goes. Huge update though. 6 or more team owners submitting statements urging a resolution. Leave a comment down below. Where do you think things stand? Where will things go the next 2 months? Are we still on a collision course for a fiery trial in December? You tell me. Your guess at this point probably as good as mine. Thanks for watching, folks. If you enjoyed this video, this breakdown, leave a like, subscribe for more NASCAR content, news, commentary, and so much more every day, all year long. And a big thank you to my Patreon supporters as well. I wasn't planning on doing a video today, but duty calls sometimes. I'll see you again tomorrow night after the Cup Series race at the Roval. Have a good weekend, folks.